The Microsoft customer agreement, one of the main benefits that or Microsoft, I should say, are positioning this around is the way they handle pricing and invoicing. So, what is Microsoft changing in regards to pricing and invoicing? Within the Microsoft customer agreement, Microsoft is making changes to the pricing model, and pricing will be in US dollar worldwide. However, if you want to pay in a different currency, currently 16 are supported, you can settle in those currencies using the monthly exchange rate. The rate is refreshed on the first day of the calendar month and applied to all transactions within that month for your specific currency, and the billing currency is determined by the legal address of the customer. So, at the moment, it's unclear if this is the same for user-based licenses, but we assume this to be the case. In a clear example, what is happening here is you have the worldwide price list, which is in USD from Microsoft. You will start using and consuming services, for instance, in Azure. At the end of the month, Microsoft will total up your charges in USD, but because you're, for instance, based in Portugal, you want to pay in euro. What Microsoft does is look back to the first of the month. They would say, this was the exchange rate at the first of the month. So in order for you to have budget insights, we're not going to use the exchange rate at the end of the month. We're going to use the exchange rate at the first of the month. So at the first of the month, that was the exchange rate. That's the rate we use for the entire month to bill you in your local currency, which is the euro in this case, and give you that invoice for your Azure services at the end of the month in that local currency. Now, with the addition of user-based licenses to the MCA, the user-based licenses are generally invoiced upfront at the first of the month. So if you purchase user subscription licenses, they would be invoiced at the start of that month, and they would potentially be invoiced in the exchange rate that is present at the first of that month. So right off the bat, that means you have less predictability because you would need to know in advance what the exchange rate is going to be when your invoice is coming or going out. However, what you can obviously do is lock in for a longer period of time. So you could say, I have all these licenses that I know I'm going to be using in the next year. I want to lock those in, and you lock those in against that foreign exchange rate that is present at the time of buying. And if you choose monthly invoicing, you would still have that same price going forward. Like I said, we're not sure if this is the way it's going to work for the user-based licenses, but we assume that that is the case. So here's this shown in a more visual picture. So if you look at Microsoft pricing within Azure, what's going to happen? The price list will be in USD, but you want to be paying in euros. Then in January, for instance, you just start consuming services. So the entire month of January, you're just going ahead. And at the end of the month, Microsoft will tally up all the services that you've used within Azure over that month. Look back to the first of the month, see what the exchange rate is for January at the start of that month, and invoice you for those services that you have been using within that month against that exchange rate. Then the same thing happens the next month. So you start using in February all the service that you want to have. And at the end of February, Microsoft will look back to the beginning of February, take that exchange rate and invoice you against that exchange rate at the start of the month. Now, how does invoicing look? I wanted to show a picture here because I do think that this shows a lot of promise. Invoicing has been totally overhauled, and it used to be a mess, and the invoices looked unreadable. It's hard to understand what is being bought. The naming convention was off. It was a big issue. You had to know a lot about Azure to understand what Azure services were appearing on your invoice, how you should read it opposed to the prices that you see in your price list. Calculating that back and having insights into if this was correct was very, very difficult. Now, what Microsoft has been changing is that you have a lot more flexibility in how you want your invoices to be sent to you. So on top of the new invoice layout that you see on the picture, which looks a lot better in my view, it's very much easier on the eyes. It shows immediately some important numbers like what's the total amount of my bill, how is that built up, and then you can build in section summaries. So you can create invoice sections to organize your cost in a specific way. So if you want to specific services listed under a specific section, you can do that. And then all the sections will be displayed in total as well. However, you can also separate those invoices more easily. So you can say, okay, these services that or these subscriptions, for instance, within Azure should all be invoiced under this entity, and these subscriptions should all be invoiced to that entity. You would have a lot of more flexibility there. So right off the bat, when you look at pricing and how pricing is set up and how invoicing is done, this is all a lot easier than the way it used to be, and it's better on the eye, easier to relate back to your actual charges that you have incurred in your, for instance, Azure portal or even your M365 portal. Yeah, all in all, I think this is one of the main improvements that Microsoft has made to the Microsoft Customer Agreement.